for progressive values during her now 10 plus years in the Florida legislature. She graduated magna cum laude from Tufts, received her law degree from GW, and received her LLM in estate planning from the University of Miami. She's served in the House of Representatives from 2010 to 2018. And in 2018, she was elected to the Florida Senate. She currently serves as Democratic Caucus's policy chair and was appointed to serve on a variety of committees, including the Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture, Environment, and General Government, Education, Transportation, Finance and Tax, and Ethics and Elections. She's fought tirelessly to expand access to healthcare, invest in renewable energy and environmental preservation, strengthen our public education system, and secure equitable rights and opportunities for women in Florida. So thank you, Senator Berman, so much for coming tonight, and I'll turn it over to you to
Okay. Great, and my mom would be very proud with that introduction. So thank you. So I kind of want to do this sort of interactive, but I'll start and I'll talk about a couple of the bills that are out there that you guys have probably heard about, give you a little bit of an update on them, and then we can open up the floor and you can ask me about any of the bills. I will say, because of COVID, it is such a different session. No one is allowed up here. We are not allowed to have anyone testify in person in the Senate. In the House, they are allowing that. So we're very, hi Susan, we're very isolated, and they feel really emboldened about doing anything that they want to do. They have the numbers, they have the governor, the cabinet, the House, the Senate. So there's a lot of bad bills that are coming through, and the Senate used to be the place where we could kill them, less so this year. So it's, we're done. We just finished today officially week 6 out of 9. So there's 3 more weeks to go, and look for, more bad things probably. And a lot of the worst things happen like on the midnight on the last day kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. So there's 2 really, you mentioned I'm the policy chair. So there's 2 really, really controversial bills that we are working on the policy side. The first one is HB1, which is the anti-rioting bill, the way that, which was started after the Black Lives Matter protests, but they're saying now that it was really, that they did it because of the protest at the Capitol, but that's really not true. It basically stopped, it creates a lot of new crimes, including something called mob intimidation. So if you have like 3 people who are protesting and trying to advocate for a cause, you could be arrested for mob intimidation. So interestingly, we have some advocates on this bill that we would never have before, because they are equally as concerned about it. So one of our advocates, believe it or not, is the Catholic bishops, because right now at the abortion clinics, the Catholic bishops, the Catholic, the party has, the Catholic religion has people who are out there advocating for you not to have an abortion. They stand opposite the clinics with protest signs. Those people could be arrested. So it's kind of interesting. So we've got some allies that we never would have had before on this bill. They also have crimes about if there's rioting, and they will, and there's other robbery, they'll enhance those crimes. They also look into cities. So we have our mayor on here. They're saying that if you lower the amount of funding toward your sheriff's office, the state attorney can bring or your law enforcement, the state attorney can bring a lawsuit against you for lowering the amount. This is the quote, defund the police issue, that this is how they're trying to quote address it. So that's really crazy. And I think there's a lot of that could potentially be unconstitutional, but we'll have to see how that plays out. The bill has not is being heard for the first time in the Senate tomorrow. We're taking over the House bill, and we're going to hear it in the Senate Appropriations Committee tomorrow. They have scheduled the entire day to hear the bill, and Saturday if need be. There will be a lot of advocates. We have a lot of great allies who are our traditional normal allies that you would think in this fight. NAACP, ACLU, they're all going to have people who, even though people aren't allowed to come testify in person in our committee, they're allowed to testify from the Civic Center, which is a couple blocks away, and it's on TV like this. And so there will be a lot of people testifying. There will be a lot of debate. There will be a lot of questions. I don't know if it'll take 2 full days that they've scheduled, but it's going to be a long, we will do a good job of attacking it. I don't know how many of you got to witness it on the House floor. It's already passed through the House floor, and our Democratic caucus did an amazing job. They were so prepared. We've got the bill divided into various silos. We've got like fiscal impact, because this is going to cost money to the state. Not to mention, like with Major League Baseball, people may boycott the state, but we'll get to that bill too. We also have constitutional issues. We have historical racism issues, which we're going to talk about. So we've got the bill divided into silos. We're really prepared and to attack it. They beat it up really nicely in the House, and I'm sure we will do as good a job in the Senate, because we've spent a fair amount of time preparing for that bill. The other bill that we're going to prepare for next week, we haven't heard it yet either. Well, actually, some of us heard parts of it, is the voter suppression bill. So you might have heard this bill, about this bill. It changes. It's basically to make it harder for people to vote. So one of the things it does is it says that your vote by mail ballot request has to be renewed annually. Right now it's for 4 years. So that's a big change to have to renew it annually, because now Democrats are voting by mail, and all of a sudden they're panicking about that. They did away with drop boxes in the first version I saw. Even some of the Republican supervisors of elections were very upset about that. So I don't know if they put it back in. I think we are going to hear the House version, which includes the not being able to give out water to people online. We did not hear that part of it in our in the Senate yet, but I think that's going to be coming over. So we're working on that. We're working with our usual allies also on that bill. We're going to be doing some messaging and getting the word out on that. So those are 2 of the most troublesome bills. Yes? Somebody had a comment? No?
I heard, so, yeah.
So that's where we are right now on, I would say those are the 2 most troublesome, but there's a lot of other troublesome bills. Somebody asked me about the COVID liability bill. It did pass, and it was already signed by the governor. And it protects both businesses and medical professionals. I didn't vote for the bill. I have some real concerns about, if you were a business and you said to your employee, you can't wear a mask, and they got exposed to COVID because of it. Now you can't sue them. Well, I guess you can, but it's a very high burden. Right. You have to get a letter. You have to get an affidavit from a doctor saying that you got the COVID from your workplace. So they've made it a really, you can sue them. I shouldn't say that, but they made it a really, really high burden. And somebody said you have to prove gross negligence. And I worry about our workers. If your workplace put you in jeopardy, I want you to be protected. So that's why I didn't vote for it, but it is the law. So we will have to, see how it plays out with everybody. And there haven't been that many lawsuits, because it is hard to prove where you got COVID and who you got it from. And I think it will be mostly rare that hopefully we won't see too many of these lawsuits, but I didn't want to foreclose them before they even had the opportunity to pursue these claims. And that's what the COVID legislation will do. My bills, I have since I'm a senator, I get to file unlimited bills, which is kind of fun, but also a dual-edged sword because you got to work them all and everything. So I had 21 bills that I filed, and we were talking about this today. I think probably 7 or 8 will become law in some way, shape, or form, which is, I'm really excited for a Democrat. That's a pretty good percentage. A couple of the bills, I always do bills for the estate planning section, so that's 2 bills that should pass. I have a bill for water safety, and it would require that each school ask the children if they're new to the school, so particularly the kindergarten grade, if the child knows how to swim. And if the answer is no, then they would have information that they could pass out to the parents about where to get free and reduced price swim lessons. So I'm excited about that because pool safety and water safety is a big issue, and drownings, unfortunately, in Florida are pretty high numbers. So that's a great bill, and I think it's gonna pass this year. I'm hopeful. I also have a bill you may have heard of. I've done it a couple other years, called the Purple Alert, and it's sort of like the Amber and Silver Alert, but it's in the gap period because Amber's for young, Silver's for old. And the purple would be for people with developmental disabilities like autism. If they go wandering off and go missing, there will be a procedure in place with the police for how they can be notified and how they can immediately start the search and some things that they can do. And it's because there was someone in Port St. Lucie, and we're doing it in his honor, and there are other people who wander off also. So I'm excited about that bill. You may have heard about my education bill, which is really exciting. What my bill says, when I filed the original bill, I said that if you have a child in grades K through 8 and you feel that they have had a COVID slide and they have not really been successful this school year, that you could go into your school and say, I want my child to be retained in their grade for this year. It is now, thank you. It is now part of another bill and a part of a big education package. We did, as one compromise, the one thing we did was we moved it from kindergarten through 5th grade now. But I think it's going to pass. I'm really excited about it. And that's not to say if you have a child in 6th, 7th, and 8th, you can still go advocate for them to be held back. But the thing about the K through 5 bill is the parent is the ultimate arbiter, and the parent gets to say, no, I don't feel, even if the school says, your child's doing great and you should move your child on, if you as a parent say, I don't think my child should move on, they won't move you on. So that's really exciting. I'm very happy about that. And then we also are working on the budget now, which is really our only requirement here in Tallahassee, believe it or not. All these bills are superfluous. So we're doing the budget, and we have, we were warned that, this is going to be a terrible year, COVID and no money and blah, blah, blah. And now, thanks to the American Recovery Act, we're pretty flush in the state. We're expecting another $10 billion with a B. So a lot of the talk has been just talk. So it's hard to say where we're going to end up. We voted on the budget on Wednesday for the first round, and we voted on a $94 billion budget. The the House voted on a $97 billion budget. So we're already $3 billion off. And they did include some of the federal money. We did not include any of the federal money in our budget. The bad things, the good things in the budget were, there is more money. The bad things that the budget does is take some people off Medicaid, 18 and 19-year-olds, and takes away some of the Medicaid services like dentistry. It also hurts hospitals. I think they're shorted about $250 million. I'm trying to think what, there's still wait lists for people with disabilities there's something like a 22,000 person wait list on that one. What else is in the bill? So here's the thing that mostly concerns you guys, and I'm sure everybody talks about this, and that's affordable housing. So the Sadowski and the fund this year is really rich. Normally, the fund has about 300 million, maybe 350 million if in a good year. This year, because all the Northerners who came down and bought, or from out of state and bought homes in Florida, the fund is made up of the documentary stamp tax. It's now over $400 million this year. And every year, as you all know, except for last year, every year I've been in the legislature, they sweep the funds out of that trust fund and they leave a smaller amount left over for affordable housing. Last year, we fully funded it. Then the pandemic came and the governor swept it because of the pandemic. So we've never fully funded Sadowski. And this year will be no exception. So what happened, so now that they have this huge pot of money, relatively speaking, 400 million, they have proposed to use 200 million for affordable housing, which is better than it was. That number's a little bit higher. There was some pushback because it was so low. So they'll use about half of it for affordable housing. And then they want to use the rest for resilience and climate change kind of projects. And that's great use of money, but it doesn't have to be the affordable housing money. Like I said, there's $10 billion. Why they have to raid 200 million from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I don't understand. And the thing is, the need for affordable housing is even greater because there have been so many sales. The average price of a home in Palm Beach County, a home, when I started, it was like 350,000. It might have even gone lower at points. It is now over 400,000. So, I mean, people can't afford, our teachers, our firefighters, cannot afford to live in Palm Beach County. And we need workforce housing and we need affordable housing. So I am a little disappointed about what's going on with Sadowski. We voted against that part of the budget, all of us, all the Democrats, I think it was everyone. And we'll see it again. But I think that seems to be the quote deal that they have worked out. And then the other interesting thing, when we started the whole budget process, we were told, don't expect any special projects, because we all put in for our cities and we put in for our counties. Sometimes we put in for some of the nonprofits in our counties. And we were told, this is going to be just such a terrible year. You're not going to get it. But I got to tell you, a lot of the projects are being funded, which is really nice, including a water tower in Delray Beach right now is in the budget. Yeah, for $250,000. So we're very excited about that. We're hoping that it'll stay in the budget. We'll keep pushing for it. So I'm hopeful that those items will stay in the budget. And that's pretty much an overall. I'm happy to answer any individual questions about, I see Julie has a question, so go for it.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, fabulous. Well, first, thanks for being here. And thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it, especially the education bill, because you're right. Typically, parents don't have any input and it's not reasonable. So that's very exciting. I'm not sure if you can answer questions. I'm just looking at a particular bill, Senate Bill SB 284, which would preempt local governments from adopting zoning and development regulations for single and two-family dwellings. Specifically, it relates to architectural style. And right now it's in rules, it says. I just looked it up. So you might not be familiar, but this is something that I'm wondering how it might impact the city. I think our mayor is on, and she has been looking to implement an overlay in the downtown area. But also we have architectural standards, and even HOAs have these. So I'm not sure where this is, if you think this is going to go through, and then what are the ramifications, if you know. And if you don't,
so I'm looking it up right now just to see the committee votes. Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so there was one no vote, which is good. Let's see who it was.
Right, on March 23rd, right?
Yeah, Rusan. Interesting. Okay.
If I may, Mayor Shelley Petrolia, that was a question that I had too. And there's been also some questions about how this affects historic homes, because again, that's a big issue in a lot of our towns. to maintain the historic integrity. So anyway, that was nothing, I couldn't really tell the persons, how it would affect, but that's something that I think that needs to be looked at as well.
Right.
Yeah, let me just say something about references, community affairs, regulated industries. But it didn't pass regulated industries yet, which is still meeting, which is interesting, but they don't have it on the agenda, but they might have gotten it out of that committee. So let me just talk about preemption a little bit, because that's a good topic and we didn't get into that. I will tell you, this has been a horrible year for preemption. This is,
Yes.
I know that the League of Cities and the League of Counties are just, running around trying to put out fires everywhere. There are preemption bills about you're being able to regulate use green energy in your town. Oh, I'm losing my, in a minute, I'm gonna have to plug in. Wait, I'm losing my charge here. Let me plug in a minute so I don't lose you guys. There, good. All right, I'm plugged in. There's bills about you being able to do green energy. There's bills about you being able to regulate what businesses if somebody has a home-based business, there's a preemption bill saying that you can't regulate that. There is a bill to overturn a citizens initiative in Key West. The citizens initiative said that they don't want to have big boats come into Key West anymore. It passed. The people voted on it on the ballot, and Tallahassee got upset about it, and they're trying to overturn that. And I do think there will be some preemption bills this year. I was looking at that bill, hard to say if it'll pass or not.
Right.
They're getting late on time to not be ready. If it, and I don't know if if it was a bill that was green lighted, it probably would be a little bit further along in the process, but that's not to say it won't pass. Like we have 3 weeks left.
Okay.
So you might see some things moving through pretty quickly. It's troubling to me. And you're right, it's a problem, because I'm a firm believer that you guys in the city know best what's right for you guys. And we get upset in Tallahassee when Washington comes to us and says, you have to do this or you have to do that. But then it's okay for them to turn around and say to the cities and counties, you have to do this and you have to do that. So I find it just so hypocritical.
Yeah.
And the
and
preemptive stuff with relation to the plastics is very upsetting for us.
Well, the governor did veto the bill, the straw bill, so that was
Right.
good. So maybe the governor will be, that's the ultimate. If it gets to that point, maybe the governor. I will tell you, we didn't talk about the Bright Futures bill, and we actually voted on it today. So I'm up on it, especially right now. So let me tell you a little bit about Bright Futures, and that because of what it did and how it worked, and that's why I want to tell you about it. So if you were following it, the person who introduced the bill and said that they're only going to pay for Bright Futures if you have a major that they deem that you can get a job with, and they're going to decide what the majors are, and that's it. And you're not going to get Bright Futures if you're not in one of these majors. And so basically you have to almost be in like STEM majors, science, technology, right, engineering, math kind of majors. And the students in this state and their parents went crazy, which was great. There were, they did a petition, 100,000 people on their petition. They came up to the hearings, they testified, they wrote letters, they called our offices. We were inundated with calls. I think I had 1,500 calls on the issue alone. And I was a supporter, and I was still getting, tons of calls. So the bill sponsor had to back down. He had no choice. It was just this. And so that's why I'm telling you, because of the preemption, if you can get like that kind of support, then they'll back down. I mean, it's pretty rare to get that kind of support, but that's the kind of thing we need. So the bill we voted on today, it's still not a good bill. And the Democratic caucus all voted against it today, which was nice. We stood together. And I think we were even joined by 2 Republicans who voted with us. Yeah. The bill we did today, they're gonna make a list of majors and what careers they lead to, and then tell the kids to look at it. Big deal. I mean, I still don't like it, but they're making a list because eventually it could have a nefarious purpose. And the other thing that they're doing is they took the Bright Futures money and they won't guarantee you anymore that you get 100%. They're going to do it in the budget every year. So this year it is 100%, but next year it doesn't have to be. And I found that really troubling because we're making a promise to these kids. Kids in middle school start working to get their Bright Futures scholarship. And it's not, they work really hard. They have to get certain GPAs, they have to get certain ACT scores. They have to put in a certain amount of community service hours. So, and these parents count on it, knowing that their kids, they're putting away money, but they know that their kids are going to get the Bright Future scholarship and it's going to help them be able to go to school. So there's no guarantee anymore. This year there will be the 100%, but so we voted no on it, but it was great because it showed that when they really woke up the population, that Tallahassee really responded.
Lori, can I ask a question about that Bright Futures? Just to clarify, is that for the new students coming into the Bright Futures, or is that for those who are also continuing to receive it? So I'm wondering, is there grandfathering in for those who are already receiving it? Because I can imagine that is going to absolutely upend some of these kids that have relied on this to be able to go to college. How are they going to continue?
So right now, so Tina Polsky, our new senator from Palm Beach County, put an amendment on for that exact issue, Shelley, and said, let's at least grandfather in and say anybody who's in the system will get 100%, and they would not accept her amendment. They didn't accept it.
Wow.
So that means nobody's grandfathered. I mean, look, they know that if they play with those numbers, I mean, they're like, well, it doesn't matter. This year, everything's fine. We're going to give you 100% this year, but that's only this year. But they do know if they play with those numbers, they're going to hear from the people that we heard from. So that's the only good thing. But, that's not to say like 3 years down the road, they can't all of a sudden like say, oh, you know what? We decided we can't fund it 100% anymore. So it's really disappointing. It's really upsetting for that
Lori,
reason.
I have two questions about pushback.
Sure.
The first is I had heard, and this is the easier one, I guess. I thought I heard that you'd been able, or in the House, the Democrats had been able to make some changes in HR 1. Maybe I misheard that, but I was wondering, you didn't mention the, okay, so that people can still drive cars into crowds if they feel threatened, then it's not a problem. Okay.
Right, and then also the Confederate monuments are still part of it also. If you take down a monument, there's a new crime for doing that. Yeah, no, I think it still includes all that information.
But the broader question is, in terms of, not really push back, it's push forward. With new funds becoming available for Medicaid expansion. Right now, I mean, it's insane that for years, the feds paid 100%, then it dropped down to 90. Now it's gone up to 95 through the American Recovery Act. But what kind of pressure can we, I mean, I wanted to start, I just had an op-ed published the other day, and I was surprised that the Palm Beach Post took it because it was basically accusing Republicans of killing 800 people every year by not doing it. And I mean, that's what the numbers say, and a fifth grader could figure out that, if you don't have health insurance, you are more likely to die unnecessarily. Is there any talk of,
Yes.
I mean, and what can we be doing? I mean, I'd like to get out on the street with banners that say, you're killing people, expand Medicaid.
Yeah, so it's really upsetting for all of us, and especially I said as part of the budget, they actually are taking I think it's 18 and 19-year-olds out of Medicaid expansion. So they're being counterproductive. So when we talked about that budget, we have a bill right now in the legislature that Senator Tadeo filed saying to expand Medicaid. So she tried to put that on as an amendment. They would not let her because there's a rule that you can't have a bill and use it as an amendment, but they let her talk. And she gave a nice speech on the floor saying, you know, this is crazy. Think of all the money we can get, not even just the lives that you're saving, but the money that the state is giving up by not doing it. And Darren Soto, who's a congressman who had been a rep with us, actually came to Tallahassee this week. I guess they're on recess, and he came to talk to us about the American Recovery Act and what's going on. And Darren was there when we fought for Medicaid expansion in Florida and didn't win on the floor. And he told us that actually for the next 3 years under the American Recovery Act, the state would get 100%. And then after 3 years, it drops down to 90. And also there's a different pot of money, which would be separate, which would cover the additional night, which would cover the 10% basically. So it's still like 100% paid for by the federal government. So it's crazy for us not to even do it. Now, I asked that question to the sponsor when we were allowed to ask questions during the healthcare silo on the appropriations. I said to the chair, I said, are you aware that under the American Recovery Act, if we expanded Medicaid, we would get 100% payment for 3 years and then 90% thereafter? And he said, yes. And that was, you know, but he didn't say we're going to do it. So they know about it. We're raising the issue. We're bringing it up on the floor as much as we can. I have asked you guys for years, and I still ask you guys, put it on as a ballot amendment, put it on in 2022. I know they've tried.
That's right.
If we put it on, it would pass and we would have it. And that, to me, that's the only way it's going to happen.
And
they are just so opposed to it.
The reason the Republicans don't want it to happen, or one of the reasons, is it would show people that government works.
Right.
And they do not want that. You know,
they are so ideologically opposed to it in every that they will, even though they're shooting themselves in the foot so that they can, you know, so that they won't take it, because it would save the state money. No, forget about the moral issue of taking care of people and giving them insurance coverage, and you know, but in the long run, it would be worth billions of dollars to the state. So it just blows my mind that even from the economic point of view, they don't do it. I mean, I get frustrated that they don't do it from the humanitarian point of view, but it shocks me repeatedly. And the only thing I can say is put it on the ballot, 2022.
Mm-hmm. Arlene has a question, it looks like.
Sure. Hi, Arlene.
Yeah, I think, I could be wrong, Michael, but I think you said 800,000 people that are.
Correct.
No, it's 800,000 that are eligible. The ratio is 1 per 1,000. There was a study. There was a study that they did back pre-ACA, back in 2008, that estimated, it was at Harvard, and it estimated that 45,000 people were dying every year, and there were 45 million without health insurance at that time. And you know, how do you calculate it? I mean, I don't really know. It's you know in your gut that people are dying because of it. But when I looked at it recently, they just had another study, you know, like 2 years ago, that estimated the number of people that were dying in each state that hadn't rolled it out. And for Florida, it was in the prior 4 years, it was something like 2,700. So that was pretty close to 800 a year. And it's the same ratio. But you know, whether it's 800 or 600, you know, it's
a disgrace.
It's like murder is what it is.
It's a disgrace. And you know what, I mean, what also happens is people come to the hospital very sick. And
That's
that
right.
costs us more money too.
Yeah.
Because people don't get preventative care because they don't have insurance. So, and we pay for that too.
And it's not just poor people. Several years ago, Nick Kristof had an op-ed in the Times, and he had a college friend, his roommate at Harvard. These are two Eastern Oregon boys that went to Harvard, became roommates. You know, Nick went on to become this respected figure. His friend ended up with a divorce. He went into some, and he deliberately didn't get insurance because he was younger and he thought, and after the ACA passed, he was at the emergency room, stage 4 prostate cancer, and this was a smart guy. This was a guy who had all kinds of resources, and he died because he was not going to go to a doctor. He couldn't afford it. So.
Wow.
Lori, the question a lot of us here on the call have heard Wendy Link speak to the Voting Act.
Oh yeah.
Voting bill. But what she did say is that all the 67 supervisor elections are on this together to oppose this, but procedurally that she didn't know, but she didn't think that the supervisor of elections could oppose it. It has to come from maybe the ACLU or some other source. Do you know anything? Would you have any thoughts about that?
So we heard from the Secretary of State, who is, I guess, in charge of all the supervisors of elections, and she's a political appointee, so she finessed it. We asked her, did you see any fraud? Have you had any instances of fraud? Have you seen any people mailing in ballots that had fraud on them? And she said no, she couldn't point to any. So it's like we had we had the governor say what a great election we had and how wonderful, how smooth it ran. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, but we need to change the law. So Wendy she could get out there. The one guy who was a state senator, he's a real rabid Republican. He's a supervisor of election in, I don't know, Umatilla or something. He actually got upset when they said they were going to take the drop boxes out, and he was quoted in the newspaper. So Wendy could be out there. She could be saying, I don't support this provision. She doesn't have to say I wholesale hate the bill, but she could, if there's specific things in it she doesn't like, she can say it.
Yeah, twice in one day she did to a bunch of us of citizens anyway. The other thing I know that, is this going to change that Tallahassee's not going to do anything about guns? Maybe that's what a preemption might be.
So I've been busy all day. Tell me what President Biden did today with guns. He did something, right?
A ban assault weapons, and who else saw that?
Wow, I'm excited. That's great.
And what else did he do on hardened background checks? Who saw?
Did he do some with the ghost guns? I know they were talking about the ghost guns. Yeah,
the ghost guns and bump stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's great because Florida's not going to do anything. So I'm glad to see that it's happening in Washington. I always bring a bill. I have 2 bills this year. One is to expand the risk protection orders, which is where police can go and remove a gun if somebody's a danger to themselves or others. Was my bill originally, so I'm trying to expand it to the original bill, which would allow family members to also go to court and ask for guns to be removed. They gave that bill one hearing like 2 years ago, and since then they won't hear it. I also have a bill with domestic violence and guns, so that if a police officer goes to a scene of domestic violence and he sees a gun out there just lying out, they can remove it from the house. Can't get a hearing on that bill either. There is one bill moving in the legislature that is a pro-gun bill. I don't know if it will make it all the way through. It is to bring guns into church. And if a church has a school, because right now you can't do that, but you could bring the gun into the church and to the church school, I think. But I don't know if it'll make it through or not. That's the only, that's the only gun bill that we have moving this year. So no positive ones, but I'm glad that President Biden's doing some good stuff.
Thank you.
I think June has a question. David or June, can you unmute? June?
Yes.
She's
I'm here.
looking, there she is. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. My question is about House Bill 611, the governor's new civics literacy proposal. Actually, I
Right.
sent you an email on this because I'm writing an article for our newsletter. And once I got into it, I realized how dangerous, in my opinion, this is. I don't understand why parents are not up in arms, but maybe they don't know about it. But but the issue is this: we won't know exactly what he means by no discussion of critical racial theory,
But-
which you can also call, institutional racism, structural racism. We don't know what he intends to substitute for that, number one, and number two, how far does it reach? Because the bill as it is very general, as they are, and it just, tells the Department of Education to set goals and standards, which they always do, and then it comes down to the boards of education in each district. But whatever each district does must conform to the standards that were set. So the issue is, just like your reaction, a politician setting curriculum for the public schools, number one, and number two, even when he had hearings, you do not know what he really intends. I tried to get more from the Department of Education, from the Teachers Association. They didn't have it. It'll be a done deal. And the last thing I'm concerned about, and I don't know if you can help me understand if it goes this way, if we're not going to talk about racism as a structural part of society, that's what it means. What happens to American history? What
Well,
happens?
I mean, I know you've been working on this issue and I think it's pretty esoteric. And I think you're looking at it through a very nefarious lens and it probably won't go that way. So what I can tell you is, we right now in Florida, we have certain parts, there's about 11 different things that we tell the schools they have to teach. Like one of them is Holocaust studies and one of them is African-American studies. So there will always be African-American studies as part of the curriculum because we have that listed there. It's in statute. There's a bunch of things, but African-American studies is part of it. So you can rest assured that will be good. The other thing that you should know is we have a great school board in Palm Beach County and they're not going to do anything crazy. I think a lot of this is red meat talk. There's no such thing as critical race theory. This is the new Fox News talking point. There's no such thing as that. There's no, we haven't said this is what we're going to do. We're going to do civics education is what we said. And civics was good. How they present it is a whole issue, but the Department of Education will give some guidance to our school board and our school board will make sure that they fit within the parameters and our school board is good. You don't have to worry about them.
I am
So-
concerned though, this is statewide.
I know. And that is a
Holy
problem,
smokes.
like in somewhere like in Umatilla, you're gonna see it
Yeah.
taught in a different way,
Yeah.
probably than it is
And I
taught
do
in Palm
think
Beach
that it
County.
has tentacles. I do.
Well,
Given.
we'll see. Let's see. I mean, we'll see how it plays out.
Okay.
It's early in the discussion, so we'll see how it plays out.
Thank you.
Sure. It looks like Rosalie is raising her hand.
Okay, I was wondering if anything's happening with the two abortion bills.
Oh, so yeah, so I was really excited and I don't know if you saw in the paper, I wrote that the abortion bills weren't moving and then it started moving. So I hope I didn't curse it. I'm very upset about it. So in the Senate so far, none of the abortion bills move, which is great. So,
Okay.
but the bad news is they can always take a House bill up. That's the bad news. And the bill that's moving in the House, it's gone through 2 committees, is a very terrible bill. It's really troubling. And it says that a woman can't abort a fetus because there's a disability such as Down syndrome or something like that. So it's just shocking to me that we're going to require women to have children who have significant disabilities and these people, and then we're gonna leave them on their own. Then we're gonna be like, okay,
Yeah.
here, you had to have this child and now go raise this child. You know, that's just amazing to me. Like, here, it's your problem. You have no choice. So it is moved in other states. It's subject to a challenge in one of the other states where it moved. I think it's not traditionally I think a couple other states passed it, but it hasn't been implemented yet. This could be the Supreme Court challenge. This could be one of the cases that the Supreme Court takes up on abortion. It's a really troubling bill, and I'm just hoping that we do not see it this session. I hope that there's no appetite for it over in the Senate, but when we get to the end, so what happens now? We're pretty far along. Some bills have moved, some haven't. We can always take a bill from the House. If it didn't move in either chamber, it's dead. But if it's moving in one chamber, it could come to the other chamber. And what happens now is the horse trading. So if it really means a lot to the House Speaker that they passed an abortion bill, obviously it doesn't mean anything to the Senate because we haven't heard it at all. But it might mean something to the House Speaker. So maybe something that the Senate President really cares about, like we have an education package for COVID, which includes my bill. It includes allowing schools to get a break on school grading this year because they need it, because it's been such a bad year. So we're going to give them, you're still going to do school testing, but the testing is not going to be, it won't like cause them to lose their grading and things like that. And then they put some COVID liability for schools in that bill. That's a bill that we have that they don't have in the House. So they could be trading those bills, unfortunately. So we might see the abortion bill come over as part of a horse trade. I hope not. But until that gavel drops, you just never know what's going to be part of the horse trading as the session starts to wind down. What's the priority of the Speaker? What's the priority of the Senate President?
Okay, and what about the bill that's making it more difficult to have an amendment on the ballot?
We
Is
heard
going
that.
through? Yeah.
I heard that in committee. It's horrible. There's two. There's one that's raising the number to 66%, that you have to pass by 66%. And then the other one is funding for those amendment. They're only going to allow you to pay up to one donor can only pay up to $3,000. And normally, like John Morgan has funded those amendments, like the marijuana one, with very big bucks. And so that they call it the anti-John Morgan amendment, unfortunately. Both of those are moving. Hard to say where they'll end up. But I buckle up, because they could be part of the final package that comes through as session finishes up, which is really disappointing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Laura, actually, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any new questions, except Bob Avarak, and I think it's a great idea, asked if we could do a moment of silence for Alcee Hastings.
Of course.
So why don't we do that while we see if other people have more questions for you? Okay. Okay, and I guess what we can do is just keep working and fighting as hard as.
I think there's a couple more questions, and I did want
Yes, I
to
know.
just say.
Yeah, no, I meant that.
Yeah. For Alcee.
with
Yeah, I
respect
did
to
want to
Alcee.
just say Alcee was an amazing champion for all of us, and he will be sorely missed. And I know a lot of the politicians have said it, and I second it. It was never fun to have to speak after him, because he was just an amazing person and speaker, and he was one of a kind.
Sora has a question.
Okay, I have to wrap up in a little bit, but let's,
Okay. Yep.
Sora, and I think Susan has a question too. And then we're going to wrap up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I put, do you need me to talk? Because I don't know. First time I'm
I didn't
attending
see
this.
it. I didn't see
Um,
the question.
Okay,
What's the question?
so yeah, I teach sex education. And every time I get to the unit about abortion and birth control, I get really frustrated because we don't need to even be talking about abortion in the 21st century when it is entirely possible that women do not have to get pregnant. Why can't Democrats switch the conversation to birth control? To don't get pregnant. And they already did it in Colorado. They cut teen pregnancies by 40% by handing out free contraception. So why are we still discussing abortion?
I agree with you, and I had the long-acting reversible contraceptive bill
That's right.
originally in that I had the LARC bill, and we couldn't get it through. This year, believe it or not, a Republican brought the LARC bill, and I don't know, I think it must have gotten stalled. I thought he was getting it moving. I thought we were going to get it through this year because we had a Republican sponsor, but I will check up on that and see where it is, but something tells me it's stalled. But I agree. Let's do more long-acting reversible contraceptives.
Yeah.
And, you know,
And
if they don't
it
want
works.
abortions.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And they're looking into changing sex ed to an opt-out under that parental bill of rights bill. So right now, I mean, into an opt-in. Right now, the parents have to say they want to be out of the sex ed. And they are going to change it so that the parents actually have to affirmatively say that you want your child to get sex ed. So that will change the whole dynamics, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, that is. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Susan?
I want to know if there's any kind of way that you could start a bill, or there is any kind of bill involved with Black kids being incarcerated when they are young, because it was said that they were super predators, and they are considered adults, and therefore we have so many young Black people in prison. Now, is there any way that that can be done? I mean, the prisons are full. They're, you know, looking at it from a money point position that could be
Yeah, I
used.
mean, there's a lot of reform going on in the criminal justice side that we're looking at, a lot of nationwide reform on criminal justice, especially for juveniles or, you know, younger people who were, you know, throw away the key kind of thing. There's a bill that I think they're looking at for time served to lower it to 65% so that people could get out. It hasn't passed, but they did look at that bill. Unfortunately, that time served bill depends on what your crime was. So if they're super predators, that could be a problem. They might not get the advantage of the time served bill. But there is a lot of discussion on, I will say, and a lot of it's bipartisan, which is good. Because the Republicans have come to realize how ridiculous it is to put people in jail and throw the key away, how it's such a waste of humanity and money. So we're continuing to look at those issues.
I just want to tell you that I did a painting about this issue, that if you can use it helpful, it tells, it's got a lot of words about, you know, about the issue, and it's in a positive way, showing 6 Black kids who have done wonderful things and giving the history. And if you want me to, I will send it to you when I get it on my computer. If that is helpful.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You know, we have to be like masters of everything, but we're not always. And I would say criminal justice is one of the areas I have left more to other people. You know, I've been more involved with environment, women's issues, children's issues, healthcare. I've served on healthcare committees a lot, but criminal justice, I've never served on the committee. And so I haven't been as involved, but I'm surely supportive of it and anything we can do to reform criminal justice, because the system is not working, obviously. So for anyone, for the convicted and for society. So I'm happy to, you know, always look at it, but it hasn't been at the top of my agenda.
And you
All
can
right.
send us the picture,
If you
Susan.
think anybody would want that, tell me and I'll send it. I don't want to send it. You've got so much stuff otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
And you can send me, Susan. We'll put it in the newsletter. Be very
Okay.
happy to do that. So
Okay, great.
I think that's it. The
Yeah, I
senator
gotta run
is
because it's
gonna
been a
have to
long
leave.
day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I have
Laura.
an Elsie
It's been
clean
great.
joke. Can I tell you an Elsie clean joke? That'll take just a minute that I think is so
Sure.
wonderful. It's clean. There was a big conservative banker, and he's going out for lunch, and he walks down the block and he sees a little boy sitting there with little newborn kittens. Do you know this joke? Little born kittens. And he looks down and he said to the little boy, "What are those?" He said, "Oh, they're Republicans." And his chest swells and he's feeling really proud. A few days later, he has some business associates. He says, "Let's go for lunch. I know just where to go." He wants to take him down the street where the little boy is. And so he goes there and he sees the little boy, and the little boy still has the little kittens. And he says in front of his friends, "Well, what do you have there?" He says, "I have Democrats." And he gets all flustered. He said, "Why? Didn't you say Republicans a few days ago?" "Yes, but they opened their eyes."
Very good.
It's cute. Very
Okay.
cute. Well, it was
That's our
great to
job
see
now.
everyone. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great
you, Lori.
evening and keep up the good work. Because we need to
Hey.
hear from you in Tallahassee. So keep writing those letters, making those phone calls. And Bob, I saw your DM and I still say, let's go on the DL.
You got it. Thank you, my
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you all, everyone.
Okay.
Good to see you. All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.
Do we have any business? No? Do I hear a motion to close?
So move.
So moved. Okay, folks, thanks, everybody. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.